Five this morning, I had a customer call me, said he want to sell some converters, and I said, yeah, that's what's up, but I mean, when you trying to sell them? He said, right now, if I can. I'm like, alright. I woke up this morning feeling like a boss, and if you ain't selling to me, you ain't afraid to take a loss, player. 2 cell phones and both of them cost. Then I went and got a third and hit my mans with the toss. Running numbers up, I hear it's like lacrosse, but I know that's not your sport, so let me hesitate, then I cross. Got a new customer, he said he liked the sauce, so I cooked him something special, then he told me thank you, boss. If you feel the same, and everybody say they feel the same, then why y'all ain't getting paid? Then why y'all ain't getting paid? Cause if you feel the same, and everybody say they feel the same, and I said we all getting paid, then I said we all getting paid. It's convert the conversation, convert the conversation, convert the conversation. It's convert the conversation, convert the conversation. So the price I speak when you talk to me, wanna sell to me, wanna sell to me. Convert the conversation, convert the conversation, convert the conversation. It's convert the conversation, convert the conversation. Then the price I speak when you talk to me, wanna sell to me, wanna sell to me. Oh, yo, them prices true. You can call my bluff, go ahead and bring them through. It's a long way up, but I'm trying to see the view. So the moral of this story is I'm trying to buy a few. You've been so patient, and that patience is a virtue. How you running home with money like you trying to catch a curfew. And that's for certain, like they promise certainties. But you can call me with some value, and I'll give you what you need. This my symphony for sellers, my junkyard dwellers, my jacking up them cars, he got a sawzall, fellas. This my symphony for sellers, my junkyard dwellers, my jacking up them cars, he got a sawzall, fellas. It's a convert the conversation, convert the conversation, convert the conversation. It's convert the conversation, convert the conversation. To the price I speak when you talk to me, wanna sell to me, wanna sell to me. Convert the conversation, convert the conversation, convert the conversation. It's convert the conversation, convert the conversation. To the price I speak when you talk to me, wanna sell to me, wanna sell to me.
Welcome back to the Top Cast. That was my man, King Jordan, with Converted Conversations. If you like what you heard, like I do, I suggest that you go check my man out. That's King Jordan. You can catch him on YouTube under the name Financialisms. Tonight, I'm joined by a guest of mine. He's also a subscriber of mine. And he's also a gentleman who reaches out to me for advice on certain topics when he has questions that he thinks that I may be able to assist him on. The gentleman's name is Mr. Abel Lucas. I do know that Mr. Abel Lucas is on Instagram, and you can check him out there. Do you have any other social medias, Mr. Lucas, that you would like to plug at this time?
I just use Instagram the most. And that's just the Liberian King.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys check out Mr. Abel Lucas on Instagram. After the show is over, I will go back and link his Instagram in the video description below to make it easy for you guys. Thank you, Abel, for coming through and having this conversation with me to share with these folks, because I think that it's a conversation that we as Black people and black men specifically don't have very often, and we should have it more often because it's part of our healing process as black people, considering what we've gone through in the last half a millennium,
Yeah,
which is 500 years.
thanks for having me on, taking the time to actually help me out with this question.
No problem. You know, like I said to you before, um, anything that I can do to help, especially me being an older guy and an older black guy specifically, then
Oh, you there?
sorry about that, Abel. My internet seemed to blink out there for a minute. Maybe somebody don't want us to have this conversation or something.
For real.
Please excuse the blip, folks. You know, for all you Marvel fans, there's a reference. Again, like I was saying before, we were so, you know, rudely interrupted. Anytime that I can offer help to younger black guys specifically, I feel like I've done my duty, because it's just my own personal belief that it's up to us as black men, as a group of black men, to look out for each other, and nobody else is going to do it. So if we don't do it, then, you know, we just out here to fend for ourselves, and that's a losing strategy. You know, you can never win a war by yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
Not,
You're,
oh, go ahead.
no, I'm agreeing with you. Like, I appreciate it because you're on point. Um,
Mm.
especially like being as young as I am. Like when I'm figuring out stuff, it's pretty cool to have someone like you I can reach out to. You know.
Indeed, indeed. Not a problem. You know, I encourage not only you, but any younger guys, especially if they're anywhere in the age range of from like 20 to 35, because I'm getting ready to be 45 here in about 2 weeks. But the topic of this video, the title of this video is "Coming to America." And I chose that title deliberately because you are actually a native of the continent,
Yeah.
if I'm correct. A native born Liberian.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I was born over there.
Okay.
In the 2000.
Okay. Very good. Just some brief history about the country.
Shoot.
Conversation. They really don't want us to have this conversation, bro.
Yeah.
But anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted for the second time, just to give some brief back history or backstory about Liberia, a lot of black people in America may not even be familiar with the country, especially if they under the age of 30. And the reason why it's significant is because it's the only country that I know of in on the continent of Africa that was uh, ran by, or at least founded by freed African slaves. That to say that we as black people from America already have ties with Africa. And so it's not like if we decided to leave today and go there that we weren't already there. And as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, you could correct me, but the native language of that country is English.
Yeah, it's English. It's like it's English. It's pidgin English, pretty much. We just
Mm.
say it's different. Like not
Okay.
much different from your.
Okay, okay. Cool, very cool. But I thought that it was important to bring that up because I know that I noticed a lot of people, a lot of black people here in the United States have a certain sentiment about, you know, the continent of Africa and some of the groups of people there. But I understand that I myself, when I think of these things, I think of them in a context. So I don't look at them as individual isolated incidents. So You know, it's always to contextualize things because it gives you a better understanding of what is actually happening.
I see.
And that's what I want to do with what you asked me in the DM or Instagram. And basically what you were saying to me is that you were born in Africa in 2000, and around 2005 you were adopted by some white folks. I assume them to be Americans, and brought to the United States, hence the title Coming to America. And I was curious about those events. And then you went on to mention that you were having like a sort of an identity crisis because of the situation that you went through. Does that sound about what it was that you were asking me, or you could correct me if
No,
I'm incorrect?
that's correct. Yeah, that's
Okay. And so the circumstances are in 2005 when you were just a child still at 5 years old, you were adopted by white folks, brought to America. Where at in America specifically?
Yeah. So I was adopted from Liberia, and I came over to Washington State, so West Coast.
Okay. And what exactly are the circumstances that led to you being adopted by Americans?
So at the time when I was born over in Liberia, it was during the Civil War that was going on. And so, like, the year right before my adoption, that was like when the war ended. And then, like, my family, we just didn't have food and stuff. Like, I mean, like, my mom would work, go into the garbage, get some food out, or sometimes we wouldn't have anything at all. I'm talking like sand and water, or like like anything that we could find to eat, like we eat, or some days we wouldn't eat at all. Um, we were like that feeling of starving was very consistent every single day. And then so my parents wanted me to have like a better future and opportunity, so that's why they put me in the adoption. And then my grandpa was pretty much like the chief of like the tribe I'm from, and he has some connections, so he was able to get me, my brother, and all the other kids from the tribe into the system to get adopted.
Now, what I find interesting about that is that this occurred in 2005,
Hmm.
and it's not very different if you are to contextualize this thing. It's not very different from what's basically been happening between white folks and Africans in Africa since 1492, or since we're told that the slave Atlantic slave trade began. And I find that highly, highly interesting. And here's why. Like I said earlier, a lot of folks, especially if they under the age of 30, right here in America, black folks specifically, um, probably never even heard of Liberia. If they did, they probably couldn't tell you exactly where it is on the continent of Africa. And they don't know that it was originally settled by escaped uh, slaves from America, along with the natives in that area. And but what they don't know, and you might not even know because you wasn't born then, and I only vaguely know because I was about your age when this happened,
Okay.
is there was a coup in 1980, which involved oh, what's the country to the north of you guys?
Oh, I know what it is. I know what you're talking about. Sierra Leone. Or
Sierra Leone is, I think, is to you guys is like northwest or
okay,
something like that.
I'm trying to think.
I'd have to look at the map, but that all that is really irrelevant. But
Yeah.
what happened is this is what preceded the first Civil War,
Okay.
because you were born during the second Civil War,
Yeah.
which began way back in 1999 before you were even born.
Hmm.
And I think the culmination of it was between like 2003 and 2005, and that's when the two other armed or other militia groups were able to reduce Charles Taylor's power to only 1/3 of the city of
Monrovia?
1/3 of the country or something like that.
Okay.
But I also find it interesting that Charles Thomas is was educated in America, and he was who he was and created the problems that he created because as Black people, we have a history of that. It's very unfortunate, but you know, those people, we gonna call them the usual suspects. Those people have a habit of playing us against each other because of that. And this is one of the reasons why I advocate that us as Black people have a code amongst us, not unlike the usual suspects do. In other words, we don't fight each other for their benefit. But that don't mean that we still ain't gonna fight with each other. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's kind of like you keep your business in the house.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, to get more to your point, as a result of you being adopted at a very young age, um, did you experience like a culture shock going from Liberia or coming from the Liberia to America? What was it like for you at such a young age?
Yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. It took me like a year to be able to speak like this, you know? So like for a year no one could really understand me because I had a thick accent. And then well, for one, like I'm used to like looking after myself, you know? And so coming here, and then it's like that whole family dynamic of like where like the parents are all on you and stuff. It's like I never liked that because like my mom would go get money in the day or food for us, and then it was like me and my brother, we watch ourselves from a young age. And then it was almost like I was like too much of like an aggressive person here, just because like the intensity over there was higher, you know. And so like to me it was like consider a bad thing pretty much. And so then I kind of had to like tune all that stuff down because I mean I was a kid, I didn't know much, and it was they were telling me it was a bad thing. Like over there, when me and my brother would get in trouble, we'd get in fights and stuff, right? And then let's say we were by ourselves and someone jumped us, we'd fight, and then my brother would come back and we go together, and then we beat those kids up again just to make a point of like, hey, you think you could get us by ourselves? Well, you can't, and now we're gonna do it again to make sure you get the point. And then just coming years, like everybody was very very different.
Well, I would imagine so, considering that I've never been to Africa myself personally.
Hmm.
It's on my bucket list. Um, but I would imagine that in probably every country, there's going to be predominantly brown people there.
Yeah.
And going from a country that's, let's say, 90% brown people or more into a situation where you when you came to America, what state did you say you came to again?
Washington.
Okay, so Washington is right over there where Oregon is,
Yeah.
and I do know a little bit of West Coast history, especially dealing with Oregon specifically. At one point in time, it was against the law for Black people to even buy property anywhere in the state of Oregon.
Mm.
So that to say that the fact that you in Washington State, me, what I'm getting at is that you went from being around predominantly Black people to being around predominantly white people.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's gotta be a shock.
Yeah, on that note as well too, because like, so I was, I mean, I was 5, right? And so I'm only used to seeing people who look like me, right? And then when I came over here, that was a shock, but I also didn't have like the knowledge of like the history with like our people and them, you know? And so like I in a way I was clueless to all of that, right? And so like it wasn't until like I was growing up and then I started like noticing things. And that's where like my issues as like finding myself began was through there.
Understood. First, I'd like to say salute to Mr. Cam Bash. Good evening, sir. Be safe out there on that road. Thank you for joining us for this dialogue. I would just like to say, in regard to what you was just saying, Abel, is that when it comes to dealing with the usual suspects, they have a history that you could trace back all the way to the beginning of the Atlantic slave trade, where they preyed upon us, our children, or us as children, and it's because we're very easy to influence at that age because we don't know any better. Like you was just saying earlier, you didn't know much at 5 years old, so you wouldn't know exactly what they were doing to you. You
Hmm.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because my question is this: is if instead of adopting you, why didn't those very same people who adopted you just say, okay, this is what we're going to do? We're just going to send money to take care of you, until you get a certain age. And
Well,
the reason why I say that, my logic for saying that is
mhm.
because obviously, if these people are Americans and they giving you American money, it's going to be worth X amount more in Liberia.
Definitely.
And so they will automatically improve your life just by doing that. They don't actually have to remove you from your environment, because once that happens, it creates an entirely different set of problems. But like I suspect it was done for a nefarious reason.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that as we go along.
All right.
Anything you want to say in regards to that?
Yeah, you see, like that's a just that right there would be a good conversation to have with them, right? But like that conversation through my childhood never came up. It wasn't even mentioned, you know? And then also too, they it's like the idea of saving someone. That's what they thought, but that's not the reality of the situation, you know? And it even took me a while to figure out that because that was like a guilt trip type thing with me, you know, like that's what they use as a guilt trip. And yeah, I could see like how they helped me, but at the same time, like that's not saving someone in reality.
I agree 100%, because just like I put forward here, just to you in my previous comment, you know, if you really wanted that, if they really had an honest intent to help you, you know, like they allege, then why remove you from an environment that you're already used to
Mm-hmm.
when they could just fund you?
Yeah.
Like they could give you a stipend every month. And then the thing about that is it's not going to just take care of you, but it will take care of your entire family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but and I also want to point out here that although you know the situation was dire as a result of the Civil War, um, oh, and so I would say
Hey,
that the fact.
not to interrupt you, could you start over? I it cut out for a second.
Oh, okay. what I was getting to was that even before you were born, the fact that that you had went through a war in the Second Liberian Civil War, the fact that you even had to experience that is a result of the same group of people who adopted you.
Mm.
And so in an odd sort of way, it's kind of like you were set up to be adopted.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
You understand what I'm
yeah,
saying?
because yeah,
And
America.
that's the history of the usual suspects. Is they go in and then they destabilize the country so that they could go in and do little things like this.
Yeah,
And in my opinion, it's no different than the act of the slave trade, except you're just not as brutal.
hmm,
It's really sophisticated nowadays.
yeah. I feel like it's subtle.
Um, Speak to the actual heart of the question that you have for me, which is the psychological aspect that you were going through, the situation that you were going through in regards to your identity as a native Liberian, then the trauma of you going through the actual adoption and going from one environment to another, and how that affected you and your relationship, not only with yourself, but with your adoptive parents also.
Yeah. So, when I was over there in Liberia, I mean, it was a shitty situation, but like I felt more me, like um, like culture wise too, like who I was, like that foundation. I felt like I still had that, but then when I came over here, it was like and like psychologically, it felt like I had died, like coming over here because like now I'm uh I'm not with my people. I'm not with the person that gave birth to me. I'm not even in my culture at all. It's a completely different culture. They do things differently, and then being raised like the way I was raised, like where I'm at, it's there's not very many black people over here as well. And then me, I'm a black man. I'm drawn towards certain things, and that was like frowned upon while I was like growing up. And then so it's like trying trying to be me, but then at the same time in the back of my head I had like that nag from them. And it's like, oh, like like let's say hip hop for example, right? Like I'm into that. It catches my ear. And it's like, yo, that's stupid or all this. And that's stuff like I had to deal with growing up, and that was it made me very confused, because I'm just trying to be me, but at the same time, I have like this other outside entity, like kind of like terrorizing me in a way. And so, like growing up now, I'm trying to find myself, but now I'm having to do that and also separate myself from uh, their way of living, and really be me. And that's where the issue is because it's really hard to do, honestly. I've been
And
struggling for a while.
indeed, I understand. And I just want to say right quick, I don't mean to interrupt the stream, but YouTube is tripping tonight. It's either YouTube or it's my internet, but it keep like pausing.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, so like you'll be saying something, and then it'll pause and like do the spinny thing, like
Yeah.
it's loading. But then when you come back, it stopped on the last word that you said.
Oh,
So
I see.
I'll have to go back and see how this thing looked after the show. But
All
I'm
right.
not gonna take it down
All right.
because again, like I said, I think this is an important conversation to have for us as Black people, Black men specifically, because this is not the kind of conversation that we typically have, but it is a conversation that we should have.
Yeah, I think
But
it's worth having.
one thing that I would like to mention in regards to what you just said is now that you how old now?
I'm 21. I just turned 21.
21. So that's 16 years you've been gone from your birth country.
Yeah.
So not only are you out of place here
Mm-hmm.
because you're in a foreign environment, one that you didn't begin in, but now you are estranged to the environment that you are from.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see how that dynamic works?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think or maybe at least suspect when you're thinking about this thing that these people had to have done that deliberately, knowingly.
Yeah. Like
It's kind of like if you take an exotic animal out of its place of origin and try to put it somewhere else and then try to take it back. It's no longer used to that.
exactly.
You've altered it by taking it from where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And the dynamic with us as people, to me, it doesn't sit well with me knowing the history
Yeah.
because a lot of us, we don't look at these little instances as what they truly are, which are acts of racism. Because, like I mentioned earlier, instead of taking you from your environment, they could have just funded you in your environment. And I think that alone it would have got you better living conditions.
Definitely. I feel also I would be like more me, but I see what you're saying with that because it's like they think that in the sense like they're doing better for me than what I could do for myself. You know, I've thought about that too before, and then just to touch on something you said about how now the original environment I'm from is now foreign to me in a sense, and that is true because like I'm still in contact with my mom over there and my dad and my little sister and stuff, but like aside from them, well, really aside from my mom and my little sister, it's like I have to learn my family. You know what I'm saying? And then it's a weird experience. It's odd.
Yeah, the downside is that even if you were to return back to your homeland today, you are irrevocably different
Yeah, exactly.
as a result of this experience. And again, to reiterate the point, we often don't look at these acts as acts of racism or acts of terrorism, which is what they really are. Because, like I mentioned, and I'll say it again, they could have easily just gave you money. You
Mm.
understand and kept giving it to you
Yeah,
because they kept you for 16 years. Obviously, they could afford you, right?
yeah.
So, how else psychologically would you say that you were affected by this situation?
Like with that identity is one of the pretty much, you know. And then like just like growing up with them, I felt like I wasn't one of them, you know. Like it was like pretended, but it was cleared by their actions that I wasn't one of them. And so I mean, like that affected me. It was just something that wasn't talked about. Like nothing real was talked about, and so like getting to know myself is a challenge because of that. Because it's like I feel like important conversations that I should have had never were had.
And when it comes to the usual suspects, that's to be expected. And I see it every day when when I observe other people that look like us interact with the usual suspects. And I would say to a large degree it's because they don't take us seriously. And
Yeah,
they don't feel as if they owe us, the decency of being honest with us, you know. And they feel like um that we're like us like their sidekick sort of, and that's kind of the way that they treat us. And as a matter of fact, in your situation specifically, it kind of it almost reminds me of how they are when they go and adopt a dog. The dog is kind of quasi part of the family, but it's a dog and not a person, so it's not really part of the family. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like we're projects to them,
yeah, exactly.
like a toy.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna go into this a little more too because you made a good point right there because growing up they were trying to like change me into being like them. You know what I'm saying? And then they kind of had enough of it, and so like as soon as I turned 18, it was kind of like, all right, we're done with this. You know, and they use I think what affected me the most was the use of Christianity, like the religion, against me. Because again, one, I didn't know anything, and trying to grow up and being told if I did this or that, I'm going to heaven or hell, you know? And so they were trying to control me, but at the same time, like where I'm coming from, I'm trying to be better so I can help my family back home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in that sense, I'm very stubborn when it comes to chasing what I'm chasing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I never accepted that. And so we used to constantly butt heads. And so as soon as I turned 18, it was like, all right, they couldn't necessarily control me no more. So then they just got rid of me in a sense.
Mm-hmm. And then, that's generally, I would chalk that up to human nature, but the usual suspects, they're experts at that. When they can't control the slave, then they disregard it. But I always tell other black people that you have to anticipate that any situation you in with the usual suspects is never going to be, ever going to be anything better than tacky or trashy at best, the least at best. And, after that, it becomes terroristic, lynchings and shooting unarmed citizens in the back while they're trying to get in their car, shit like that. Or feeding black babies to alligators, or coming to Africa and stealing slaves by the boatload, mostly young children. And then, 100 or so, 200 or so years later, now they're back to adopt them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? How
Yeah.
did you go from being my enslaver to now you being my benefactor? You care so much about me that you're going to remove me from my environment
Yeah.
based on your whim and your wants, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
But again, I go back to saying that they are, the usual suspects. In this case, the United States government created the situation in Liberia in 1980
Yeah.
deliberately.
I've read a little bit on that situation as well. And yeah.
They also created Charles Teller, which
Hmm.
is the guy who had a lot to do with the second Liberian Civil War, which is what you were born into, or
Yeah.
right at the end of it. And I can only imagine. I've never been in a country that's actually experienced war in the country, so I can only imagine what it's like. I know what I see on social media or on the TV, but I've never actually experienced that myself. I can only imagine that in and of itself is very traumatic. And
Yeah.
then to go from being taken out of your environment and put into a new environment around strange people who have totally different customs, it's gotta fuck with you mentally.
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah. Um, Yeah, like over there, like at least like during like the war, like we we'd wake up in the morning or not in the morning, in the middle of the night, and we'd have to like run out into the jungle and stuff because like bombs were going off too close by our house. You could look up into like the night sky, you see bullets flying. Um, yeah, so like that entire experience was just traumatic, and then year two was just the same, but it was more so psychologically like growing and finding myself.
Mhm. So what I want to ask you to do next is to speak a little bit more about your experience. Or before we
Hmm.
get into that, I just want to offer a couple comments about Christianity because I found what you said interesting. and that is not Christianity is used on an individual basis depending on the situation, but it's also been used against us as a group of people for several hundred years, actually several thousand years, since as far back as 300 BC.
Hmm.
So we've been dealing with this Bible thing for almost 2,500 years, in case folks don't know. Because, see, I'm a reader of history. So I'm aware of things like this, and most Black people are not. But what I find interesting about it is most Black people don't understand that that is a system of indoctrination. This is one of the ways how they put one of their little usual suspects inside your mind. This is how they microchip you,
Hmm.
so to speak. And the fact that you were resistant to it um, told them a lot more than you could ever say about it out your mouth. And you might not be aware of that, but they are highly aware of it.
Yeah, I don't think
Those people.
at the time, you know.
Mm. But anyway, what I was going to ask you is, because we're getting close to the time,
Yeah.
is could you speak of just briefly a little more on the things that you experienced with your adoptive parents that had any kind of damaging psychological impact on you? You know, maybe a situation or something that may have been said to you, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, um, like one thing that did affect me was like I was never heard. You know, I was always the issue, but I was never heard in the sense of they would. Okay, I'll use this for example. I did CrossFit when I was younger. I ended up placing like 10th in the world for it, right? So I'm doing that at a high level, and like their punishment would be to stop me from doing something that was like I was growing with and I was being very successful in. So whenever I get in trouble, that was what they would cut. And now to not being heard was when I would be doing stuff like that, they would want me to spend time with like the family, which I had no issue spending time with people, you know, but I gotta take care of my stuff. But that was looked upon as like a bad thing. And like psychologically too, that fucked me up because it's like I can't grow, I can't be more, you know? It was almost like holding me down.
Yeah, I find that interesting, especially when you speak about the athletics. Now, I'm not exactly sure what you were doing to get yourself in trouble, but I do know that with younger people, children, if you will, that sometimes we do things, and as a result, we do get punished by being the things that we like to do being taken away. Um, what exactly were things that you were accused of doing that were considered bad to merit such a punishment?
Oh, like the not spending time with the family. That's what I meant.
Oh,
Just that I wasn't actually like literally doing something bad. It was because I was spending like probably like 6 to 8 hours in the sport a day training, and that in itself was the issue.
oh, okay. So they didn't want to share you with the sport.
Yeah,
So to put that issue that situation in a metaphor, um, they didn't want Tiger Woods to be the greatest at golf. So they prevented you by any means and conjured up any excuse for you not to, excel at something that you were naturally or obviously good at, which
yeah,
was CrossFit.
yeah. Because I mean, I'm not saying I was like a great kid. I'm not a perfect person, you know, but like it it was like stuff like that that made no sense. And even uh so my adoptive mom and dad, like they used to fight over that because like one would say like I have a bad heart and all this stuff because I didn't spend time with the family. So it wasn't even necessarily like a physical action I was doing. It was like a judgment,
Mm, mm.
you see.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Me personally, I when it comes to dealing with the usual suspects, I have a different outlook on those those individuals,
Hmm.
and it's not mainstream. It's very, I guess you could describe it as quote unquote fringe,
Okay.
but I have a certain understanding about how the usual suspects work, and I would describe what you are describing, the incident that you're describing, as a deliberate act of racism. And the reason is because one, you're doing something constructive, which is you participating in an organized sport, and for no other reason than you are, for because of the sport, not able to spend time with your adoptive family when at their request or when they want you to,
Yeah.
or during that time period, that as a punishment they would prevent you from partaking in something that you are obviously talented in doing. And that in itself, to me, it reeks of, racist activity, or, being an act of racism. And we as Black people, I think, have a tendency to overlook a lot of things that are, in fact, deliberate acts of racism, but we just don't think about it in those terms.
Mhm.
And this would be one of them.
I see what you say. You see, like at the time when I was younger, I didn't catch a lot of those things that you're saying because, again, I was isolated growing up from other Black people. Like in this town, there's not very many. And then on top of that, like the family itself, they isolated me. They didn't even try to, like, like put me around other people like myself. And that also, I mean, just that in itself is psychologically like traumatic in itself.
Yeah, we got a question from Miss Tisha. Good evening, Miss Tisha. Glad that you could be here. Um, she asked, "What are some of the challenges you may face from your experience?" If you could go ahead and answer that question, Abel. But before you do, I do want to ask Tisha if she could be a little more specific.
All right, that's
But
good.
go ahead.
Oh, okay. Like some of the challenges that I face from this situation is just like just being very isolated, and it comes with figuring out who I am myself, and like in a social setting too as well, because I was only around uh, white people, so I tend to I pick up a lot on their judgment. So like that kind of hurts me because I can't it's hard for me to be myself because of that, when you're like constantly picking up on people judging you.
What I would ask is, as a result of being adopted by white people and being in an intimate setting with them, in other words, living with them, um, how is your view about them changed over time?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good question because I never trusted them because of how isolated I was, and also from my past experience where I'm from. Like I just always knew that they weren't telling me the truth about it, like the world and everything in it, because it was all from their point of view. They weren't open minded. So like I just knew, okay, I was like, I don't trust them. I don't believe what they're teaching me at growing up, but I don't know what the answer is or what the other side looks like. But I just knew I never trusted them. And then when I got older and I started like reading and learning for myself, and then like I was like, okay, you see, I was right.
Very interesting that you say that. Salute King Terry. Uh, Indeed, Miss Tisha, no, not a problem. I'm glad that Abel was able to answer your question. And I always ask people to be as specific as possible when they're asking questions so that they could get, to the answer, not necessarily that they're looking for, but to get to an answer quicker. So that's really the only reason why I said that. But that's neither here nor there now at this point. Um, what I would like to say in regards to what you said, Abel, is even here in America, and I extrapolate this using myself as an example. I would say that a lot of us Black people, at least at some point in time, also have that isolated feeling or that feeling that we can't be ourselves. And I know because I hear people say how they have to behave in a certain way depending on the situation that they're in, and which powerful white people might be around or not. Like at the job, for example, you have to behave a certain way. You can't wear dreadlocks. You got to cut that off. You understand what I'm saying? So the whole situation that we in, if you contextualize the entire situation we in, it's really not much different from what you went through,
Oh,
except nobody actually came to get us. They already got us. We've been here ever since. You understand? But their attitude from 1492 to 2020 has not changed. And sadly, many of us, you know, we take a lot of our interactions with the usual suspects for granted and not for what they really are. And the problem, the base problem with dealing with them is out of 100 things, they'll tell you 99 things that's true. It only takes them to tell you one lie to fuck it all up. Because now you don't know whether you can trust them or not. And that's a very dangerous situation to be in when you're dealing with other people.
mm, I
Because because they could confusion is the prerequisite for domination. You
okay.
can't you can't dominate people unless you can confuse them. And most of us as Black people have no idea about what's going on. Don't have no idea of how bad the situation is that we are in.
I see what you're saying. And I'm gl- I've never like I my brother, he lives over on the East Coast. Me and him talk a little bit about this stuff, but like it's only between me and him. So I've never heard like another black man say, especially like you older, say like you've had that same feeling of isolated too. You know what I'm saying? Like it's actually kind of nice to know, like, okay, that's what everyone else is feeling as well. Because even him, me and him, it was about not too long ago, we were talking, and because his parent that adopted him is a white older lady, um, and he said that he couldn't be himself too because like if he was, like all the people around him would just be afraid of him, you know?
That's par for the course is the cliche, or in other words, to be expected. It's not when you say it to me, it's not a surprise to me. It
Yeah,
may be a surprise to other people, but
yeah,
like I said earlier in the broadcast, I have a certain understanding of how these thing works with this group of people,
hmm,
and most of us are just not honest about it. I would just like to take the time to mention here because we didn't cover it, but not only were you adopted away, but your brother was also adopted away too.
yeah,
And both of you guys came to America, but you weren't adopted by the same families,
yeah,
which is more trauma because now not only are you separated from your family, but both you and your brother are here in the same country, but you're still separated by almost 3,000 miles.
yeah. Yeah,
You know,
that was too, and that I'm gonna say something about that too because like growing up, I had the opportunity to go over to the East Coast to reunite with my brother when I was a kid, and that opportunity never happened because my mom here didn't want me to go over there without her, you know, because like he had a family friend that was gonna pay for just my trip over there, but I wasn't allowed to. So I wasn't even able to reunite with my brother until I was like 19. And
now, how does that speak to somebody who allegedly cares about your well-being?
yeah, that's
You
why
see?
reason too I never trusted, you know, when I was being raised, I was just like, I don't know what the other side is, but like I just don't trust what you're saying.
Understood. And that's actually a great way to segue out of here because we right at about at the hour mark. And before you offer your closing remarks, what I'd like to say is first and foremost, I appreciate all you folks for coming through and catching the live broadcast. I appreciate all you guys who are going to catch this on the replay. Make sure you follow me on both of my Instagram pages. That's the Incredible T.O.P and the Top Cast Instagram page on Instagram. I don't know why the hell I said that again. But anyway, catch the Top Cast on Anchor. Season 1 and Season 2 has already started. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, do so now. Bring a friend, like, share, comment on the videos. I really appreciate it. My closing thoughts is that as Black people, at least for the foreseeable future, until this thing turns around and we're no longer under the boot of these people, we have to learn to be suspicious of them because we have been fooled for the last 500 years. It does us no good to pretend as if this is not the situation. I know a lot of you think that they're your friends, and they might be. I don't know them, but they would have to prove to me beyond any doubt that they're not in the club with the other usual suspects. And I highly doubt that that will be the case. I am personally suspicious of all of them, but that's just me personally. And for me, it's a logical standpoint because of what I just said. They've been able to successfully fool us individually and as a group for 500 years. That's half a millennium that we've been losing. Time to wake up, analyze the problem so that we can fix it because nobody's coming to save us. So we have to save ourselves. With that, Mr. Lucas, would you please give your closing remarks and thoughts, and then we'll get out of here.
Hey, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I appreciate it. I'm constantly, I'm on my own personal journey of growing, and the content that you're putting out really like helps me, especially like as a young Black man, you know. So just keep doing your thing, and yeah, again, thanks for your time. Thanks for this conversation.
Indeed, indeed. And as I said earlier in the broadcast, don't hesitate to reach out if you feel like I may be able to help you with a question or, anything that you think that I may be able to help you with. Just feel free to reach out. Again, thanks everybody for coming. Don't forget, go follow Mr. Lucas on Instagram. I'm going to link his Instagram in the video description below after the show has ended. Yes, definitely catch the replay, King Terry. I think this is an important topic. It's something that's not normally covered, and it's definitely not a popular topic. But here on the Top Cast, I'm about having real conversations about real topics with real people. And one of those people is Mr. Lucas. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Lucas. And on the way out of here, I'm going to hit y'all with a little bit more of some goodness from my homeboy, Jay Geezer. And this one is called Kush Komodo. Please enjoy. And I'll be back tomorrow evening at 9 p.m. for episode number 2 of the Kings of Comedy featuring my homie, Tone You a Fool, and Markeith Monroe of the I Don't Give a Fuck show. I'll see you guys tomorrow evening. Enjoy. Thanks again, Mr. Lucas.
Hey, take care.
All right.
Show.
Let's get it. Komodo dragons. Yo, watch on rim on tire. Push Komodos, the shit's on fire. Like Carlito, I've been with. Made people, who you been with? Chain snatchers, came through with the Benz backwards. Like notorious. Bank account looking glorious. Moving godly in the 5-speed. Maserati hypnotize me. I kamikaze. It's like interval blitz. Even if we miss, we still keep shooting. Me and my crew, we keep the bass booming. Me and my crew, we keep the paint peeling. Sky's the limit, nigga, no ceilings. Money's rolling like grass with the mass appeal. Shows at the brass rail. I like the way the cash fell. I'm something like a Dame Dash film. I'm looking at the glass half filled. I'm from Poughkeepsie to Bakersfield. I'm trying to make a mill or 456. Make another flip. Collect the interest. And yo, it's all about the Benjamins. It's all about them dividends. I'm making money with my women friends. That's what you call a friend with benefits. Which like Mission Impossible. Drop tops at a car and driver. Burning the turnpike. I'm I-95 southbound. Switching whips, test pipes, no cats down. Raw Monday night, I laid it smack down. Run the jewels with the pat down. Horse, 9 horse, that's a rondo. 9th floor, that's the condo. Switching lanes, switching time zones. On the combo, hey yo, watch on rim on tire, shit. Kush Komodos, this shit's on fire, shit. Watch on rim on tire, shit. Kush Komodos, this shit's on fire, shit. Watch on rim on tire, shit. Kush Komodos, this shit's on fire, shit. Watch on rim on tire, shit. Kush Komodos, this shit's on fire, shit. I was born to light, born to fight. See my life through these hands, I was born to write. Never left, supporting as I brought this mic. How I birthed the rap shit, for my stars and nights. Plus the stripes that I read, never torn precise. Been a while since some kids this nice. But simple as it seems, CJ, like the coming of Jesus. Some niggas they gon' hate, but some is believers. I got the hypnotic flow. Same as J Black did. J unified this rap shit, put us on the map. Now we making classics, like back in 06 with SNL, selling the challenge scales. We wrecking it well. Watch your arm, rim on tire, cheek. Kush Komodo, this shit's on fire, chick. Watch your arm, rim on tire. Kush Komodo, this shit's on fire, chick. Kush Komodo dragons, nigga. Poughkeepsie, New York. New York City. Let's go. All my niggas, let's go.